Well, if it was a very small part of his life, of course.
What?
It's
the biggest thing that ever happened to him.
Exactly.
Would you not think? Yes,
and he's
exactly.
spending the rest of his life living in the shadow of it.
For one of the researchers, a journalist contacted Aldrin quite recently and said, what about all this stuff that we may not have gone to the moon? And he came out with a lot of very interesting comments, which don't answer the question at all. He could easily have said, and I think if I had been there, or if anybody else had been there, he would have said, I don't care what you have to say. I stood on the surface of the moon. I was overawed. I couldn't believe the majesty of the stars that were around me.
Well, they can't
it
say
was
that.
so moving. It was the most fantastic thing that ever happened to me. No one can ever take it away from me, and I don't care what anybody ever says. I was on the moon, and it was amazing. None of them have ever spoken in such terms. They all come out with gobbledygook that enables them to perpetuate the myth. None of them are passionate enough. None of them are acting consistently with having been where they allegedly have been.
But this does raise an interesting point, though, that we're not just talking about one mission here. We're talking about several missions. Now, the one question which bugs me slightly is, if you're going to hoax it, okay, you do it once. Why keep doing it again and again and risk being found out with every mission that you pretend to do? Why not just leave it at one, possibly two, and then say, okay, we've made our point. It looks like we've been to the moon. Let's leave it there. Now, why keep trying to perpetuate going to the moon? Surely that's then risking being found out.
If you look at the story of the missions, the way they work out, the events that happen on them, dare I say, script writing into each mission, you'll find that there is a cut-off point for public awareness. Apollo 12, the camera, allegedly, didn't work on the lunar surface, so it was sound only. Now, you're talking about a country that lives through its television, and television at that time was a relatively new toy. So, you know, people would normally have been going, gosh, second mission to the moon. And, you know, human beings, they're more interested in what's going to go wrong than what's going to go right. So if something wonderfully awful is going to happen, then they'll all be glued there. But if it's all boringly all boring, and I'm walking over here, I'm walking over there, they don't take any notice.
We don't pick up on that point that Mary has made. That the report was that the television camera for Apollo 12 failed. But if you look at the footage, frame by frame, which I had the luxury of being able to do with an edit suite, you can find frames where the camera was picked up from being laid on the deck to being put somewhere else, and you can see quite clearly the camera is working. So, if this is correct, if the camera was working, and it was working when they came down the ladder, why didn't someone at Mission Control say, come on guys, put the camera on the legs, we want to see what you're doing? Never, for over half an hour, does anyone tell them to do something about this camera that isn't set up. Then, are we surprised when nobody, none of the TV networks in America, wants to take Apollo 13?
They don't.
Of course they don't want to take it, because they were really bored with Apollo 12. It looks too much like script writing.
But if Apollo 12 was fake, and the cameras weren't working, why not just fake the pictures like they did the first mission if the camera wasn't working? Why say the camera wasn't working? Why not come up with pictures like they did the first time?
Well, they did.
They took photographs. Allegedly, they still went. Whatever happened, I mean, there is one possible scenario here that all these Apollo missions are a front for what might have really happened. Yeah. The shop window version.
Which is what?
Well, I don't think we've got time to go into that today. But
I think that's more likely. I think that's more likely than it never happened at all. What we are presented with here, what these pictures are not the true story, but there is a true story to be told.
Yes, but we're just talking about the shop window version for the moment. Okay? Now, if you want Apollo 13 to happen, in other words, if it's part of the planned scenario, that the things will get grander and grander, but you need Apollo 13 in order to draw people's attention, you then have got to make sure that they're not particularly enamoured with 12. Okay?
Are you suggesting that the Apollo 13, the mishap was staged?
Well, everything is staged.
Yes, definitely.
Therefore, Apollo 13 was a script at the beginning, just in the same way as the movie. In fact, the movie that you see is a script. Okay, and that's what happened with Apollo 13, really. Nobody went to the moon and nearly landed and then safely got back through the narrow window that Marcus has described, using this LEM engine. No one did that, in our view.
So Apollo 13 was staged for ratings purposes?
It was staged in order, yes, for funding, because
Funding, yes.
NASA is slowly finding its funding is being reduced. They wanted to go further and further and have more missions. This was the answer. If there were planned to be more missions, and if these are pictures that are just literally fronting the situation, they have to carry on doing it.
You also have to justify the funding that you have had.
Can I ask?
I think there is a very important point that we've got to stress. That we live on a very special planet. Life is very special indeed. And I think it's time that we realize that if we wish to travel in space, which I'm sure a lot of people would like us to do, thinking long term, surely we will travel. We can't expect to go without emulating the conditions that we enjoy when we're living on the planet. In other words, our craft that we travel in have got to be more like UFOs, with a very sophisticated technology for propulsion and protection, with shields and radiation protection. The galactic cosmic radiation is lethal. You have to have a craft that can carry the required protection and have the thrusting capabilities. We won't be, in 1,000 years from now, going elsewhere in space in steam-driven rocket ships. We will be going in much more sophisticated craft using different types of technology that work harmoniously, gravity propulsion devices rather than crude rocket ships. And these devices will have to give us the protection. So one thing that we've learnt out of all this is that we're actually trapped on this planet. Forget about going to Mars and coming back alive, because we are going to be in space for a long time. We cannot travel in space out beyond the Van Allen belt without the right craft. This is where the energy must be placed. If NASA want to know what to do next, maybe respectfully we should suggest to them they start looking at advanced technologies with gravity propulsion devices that protect their astronauts.
And if your photographs are proved beyond doubt to be true, your research is proved beyond doubt to be true, you're sitting on a gold mine here. Bigger than Watergate.
Well, I don't think it's a gold mine. We're not interested in the money. We're interested in the advancement of humankind. We're interested in the progress of us all as the people of this planet. We don't want to be fobbed off with excuses and reasons why or evidence that is cooked. We want to really go to these places. We want to be proud of our achievements, not hide behind fakes.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we've been fed this information, we've believed it, and when you, having spent 25, 30 years believing something, find that what you believed wasn't the truth, you get angry.
Yes.
First of all, you get angry with yourself for being conned. Nobody likes to be conned. Nobody likes to feel that they've been manipulated. Everybody likes to feel that they're master of their own destiny. You suddenly find that one of the major events of the 20th century or any century is not actually what it would have appeared to have been when we were told about it. So you think, well, if that was wrong, what else is wrong? And you then dismantle the whole of one's belief, of your belief system, and you start building it back up again. I'm quite often asked, do I believe in UFOs? And my answer is always the same. It's not a matter of belief, it's a matter of evidence. And this is what David has done, or what we're doing here tonight. We're looking at the evidence.
I think that's
Don't believe
the thing.
what we say.
Yeah, because we've touched on a lot of things tonight, like ETs, UFOs, but throw all that away, because to some people that biases them against it and they'll think we're all cranks. The fact is that the evidence is there in the photographs, that we have not been told the true story. What the exact true story is, we'll never agree, but the evidence is there for all to see, not just people with what others might call cranky belief systems. And it's up to people to take themselves to the photographs and see for themselves what people like David and Mary and the rest of us are saying.